Hey everybody, Grimmels here with some more War Thunder footage. So, I played a few more historic battle matches last week, and I think I am improving, and I have a better feeling for the stall mechanics now. I am of course still nowhere near the level I am aiming for yet, and I don't expect to be for quite some time. That is actually something I really like about War Thunder. The skill ceiling is quite high and incorporates a lot of different factors. Aerobatics, tactics, know-how, to just name a few. I find it very motivating to know that there are always things you can still learn and always things you can improve upon. That is something I want to have in a game I plan to play for a long time. Well, let's take a look at some gameplay. I am still very much focused on the US and British tech tree at the moment, because I want to unlock the P-41E and the Tempest. The P-51 won't take too long, but the Tempest is still a long way to go. However, that gives me plenty of opportunity to fly my current favorite planes some more. The Mustang MkIa and the P-40E. So, let's start with some Mustang action. Now, the Mark I needs a bit of time to climb, so it's often a bit late for the party, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. With its heavy firepower, it's a great plane to surprise an opponent and finish the deal before there is much time to react. Now, after the bounce on that surprisingly low T-13, I gained a little bit of separation and look around, since I was not sure if an enemy fighter might come for me. I dive a bit at first to use the plane's great dive acceleration to gain some speed, and after I see I am clear, I gain some altitude back. Now, Allison-powered planes like the early Mustangs and the P-40E of course perform best on lower altitude. However, lower altitude does not mean grasshopping, and you should still use every opportunity you get to regain some altitude and speed. Now here another Mark I is asking for some assistance with a G10, and most of the other enemy planes nearby seem to be AI biplanes, so I'm not worried about those. In the first pass I couldn't quite get the necessary lead, so I go up and around in a high yo-yo for a second pass, where I at least get one hit. And up in another yo-yo, using the energy I built up earlier. I like to use vertical maneuvers like yo-yos whenever I can. It's just a good way to get lead on your opponent to fire, without wasting too much energy, compared to a flat turn that wastes a lot more and might still not give you the lead you need to fire. Now another scene from the end of the match to show off another plus of the plane, its good dive characteristics. As you can see, the plane accelerates quite nicely in a dive, and you can build up a nice amount of speed, but more importantly, you stay very maneuverable at high speed, and thanks to its good structural strengths, the plane can pull a nice amount of Gs at those speeds. This makes the Mustang a great plane for high-speed chases like this one, and is also one reason why it is a good idea to have some altitude when flying the plane, even though its engine does not perform that well up high. But having the altitude for a dive is very beneficial. While there are planes that accelerate faster in a dive than the Mustang, few are able to keep up their maneuverability this well at high speeds. Either because they are simply not that maneuverable to begin with, or because they lack the structural strength to do it. A characteristic that the P-40 shares to a certain point, but on a lower level of course. So let's take a look at some P-40 footage. So here we are in the Kitty Hawk on Korea. The plane is of course considered mostly a boom and zoom plane. Despite that, its maneuverability is not bad on higher speeds. Especially the roll rate is quite impressive. But what you have to consider is that at this level you will meet a lot of opponents that are great turners, Chaikas and Ishkas as obvious examples, but also the IL-2 will outturn a P-40 at low speeds in the horizontal by quite a big margin. Now of course none of those planes are very fast, and the IL-2 can't climb well and has problems getting the nose up, so they are easy to deal with a bit of vertical maneuvering. However, a trap a lot of P-40 pilots seem to fall into is to waste all their speed and altitude trying to stay on a less maneuverable plane compared to Chaikas and IL-2s, like a Leg 3 in the horizontal, and then get jumped by an IL-2 while not having the necessary speed anymore to outrun them or the altitude to get this speed back. In this engagement we can see how maneuverable the P-40 can be if at high enough speeds. And of course it accelerates a lot faster in a dive than a Leg 3, giving me speed which can be used for a turn that at this level few planes could do at this speed without breaking a wing. Passing the leg, I notice a IL-2 coming my direction on the minimap. I change the direction of my yo-yo towards him to make it harder for it to get the nose up to me should he try that, but he passes below me and I keep attacking the Leg 3. The IL-2 meanwhile latches on the tail of another P-40, and once I see that, I switch target and try to help out my teammate. But I am too late, and the P-40 is already critically damaged. This is what I meant earlier. The P-40 was most likely going for the same Leg 3 than I was, and used up all its speed and altitude doing so. Once the IL-2 went for him, he did not have enough speed left to get away in time. Now the next round is on the bulge map and at a relatively low tier. Great news for the P-40, since I feel there is not much currently on the German tech tree that can compete with the P-40 on its own tier. The 112B0 is decently armed with its cannons, but its engine is simply too weak and it's a horrible diver on top of that. The MC202 is, in my opinion, the only plane on the German tech tree around this tier at the moment that can compete with the P-40. Of course, here you have to keep in mind that a lot of the level placements we currently have are still work in progress and not final. As far as I am aware, a lot of planes are either too high or too low to make up for the planes that are not yet in the game. To make at least at the lower 10 levels a more or less working tech tree and not have a lot of planes focused around the same level and then huge gaps with no planes at all. The BF-109E, for example, is often considered to be too high tier. Looking at the tech tree and what planes are still coming in, I would tend to say that it is more the other way around, and a lot of planes in the other tech trees in the lower 10 levels are placed too low. As I have said last time, I, for example, expect the P-40E to move up in the tech tree once earlier P-40 variants are introduced in the game. I would assume that the P-40B takes its place on level 4. And I'm not unhappy about that. I am looking forward to the Tomahawk a lot. It's of course a little weaker in engine power, armor and armament, but it is also lighter and has a lower wing loading, making it a better turner, which suits my playstyle well. I think the P-40B will have a mix of speed, dive ability and maneuverability I am going to enjoy a lot. Of course, the P-40E is not the only plane I expect to move up in the tree eventually. I think the Lex 335 and the Yak 7B, for example, will also move up a level or two eventually. But until then, and the introduction of lower tier 109E1, D, B and C versions, I think the German tech tree is the hardest on the lower tiers, and the most difficult for new players to get into the game. Well, having said that, I'm just about out of ammo and at the end of this video. I hope it was enjoyable. Thanks for watching and maybe I see you next time.